Hello and welcome to December's edition of the Constellations. This month we're going to be looking at the constellation of Gemini the Twins. Gemini is one of the 12 constellations of the zodiac, which also means that the sun, the moon, and the 5 visible planets all seem to pass through these 12 constellations as the year goes along. Now, Gemini is represented by twin brothers. Their names are Castor and Pollux, and uniquely, at least as far as I know, these are also the names of the 2 brightest stars of Gemini. Now, Castor and Pollux shared the same mother. Her name was Leda, but they had different fathers. And of course, the one responsible for this largely is Zeus, the king of the Greek gods, or Jupiter in Roman myth. Now, basically, Zeus fell in love head over heels with Leda and decided to try and win her affections by transforming himself into a swan. This apparently worked because Leda became pregnant with Pollux, sometimes referred to as Polydeuces, and Helen, who would later become renowned as Helen of Troy. Leda is also sometimes associated with Cygnus the Swan, the constellation Cygnus. Shortly thereafter, or perhaps later that same night, Leda also became pregnant by her husband, Tiberius, the king of Sparta. By the way, this is not just a mythological construct. It does actually happen in real life. And so at the same time, roughly the same time, she gave birth not only to Pollux and Helen, but also to Castor and Clytemnestra. Pollux and Helen, conceived by Zeus, were immortal, while Castor and Clytemnestra were mortal. They were, of course, conceived by Tiberius. I hope you're still following me. And the immortal versus mortal idea is really important information to know because it has a lot to do with the end of the story. Now, in life, Castor and Pollux were inseparable. They were the very epitome of brotherly love. They were also great athletes. Pollux was a champion boxer. And Castor, it was said, that no one was better at taming wild horses. Castor also excelled at fencing. In fact, according to the myth, it was Castor who taught Hercules, or Heracles, how to fence. Their sportsmanship was so renowned and so revered that the Olympic Games, for some time, were celebrated under their aegis. Now, according to the myth, Castor and Pollux took part in the hunt for the Caledonian boar, and were also part of the famous expedition of the Argonauts in the quest of the Golden Fleece. You may remember the Jason and the Argonauts. The twins were said to watch over the great ship Argo, which was once represented by the largest constellation in the sky, which has since been kind of broken up into a lot of different smaller constellations visible in the southern hemisphere. So they were thought to be the protectors of sailors at sea, and they were always there to protect against pirates and things like that. Most versions of the myth say that while Castor and Pollux were taking part in a cattle raid with their cousins Idas and his brother Lycinus, a dispute occurred, and Idas stabbed or speared Castor, killing him almost immediately. Pollux was enraged by this, and he threw himself at the 2 brothers. He killed Lycinus pretty well instantly, while Zeus actually helped Pollux, coming to his aid and striking Idas with an arrow or a thunderbolt, depending on the version of the myth. Pollux was absolutely inconsolable over the death of Castor, and he begged Zeus to allow him to die. In other words, to take away his immortality so he could die with his brother. Zeus was so deeply moved by this that, with a show of love, that he decided to allow the brothers to live half the time in Hades, or the underworld, and half the time on Mount Olympus. Zeus immortalized this show of brotherly love by placing the image of Castor and Pollux in the night sky as the constellation Gemini the Twins. Some objects of interest in Gemini are the two brightest stars. Pollux is brighter than Castor. Pollux is the 17th brightest star as seen from the Earth. It is about 34 light years away. And Castor is the 24th brightest star as seen from Earth. And it is about 52 light years away. Now, the ranking does not include, of course, the Sun, which would normally be the brightest star. By the way, Pollux is brighter, as I said, than Castor, so if you're not sure which star is which, Pollux will appear brighter than Castor. Another interesting object is M35, the 35th entry in the Messier catalog. It is an open star cluster, and it is found just above the left foot of Castor. Gemini kind of resembles the shape of a rectangle or a shoebox type shape. And interestingly, perhaps coincidentally, M35 is also known as the shoe buckle cluster. It can be seen with the unaided eye under very good sky conditions, and it can be found in the lower right-hand corner of that rectangle. Another interesting object is NGC 2392, often referred to as the clown-faced nebula. It is a planetary nebula, visible with a small telescope, and it is really best seen, of course, by things like the Hubble Space Telescope. But it can be seen with a small telescope, and it reveals a dying star whose outer layers have simply puffed off as it got older. And in doing so, it has left this kind of circular and rather stunning design. Finally, there is an object called ICC 443. It is sometimes called the Jellyfish Nebula. It is a supernova remnant. It is a remnant of a star which blew itself up. It is about 5,000 light years away, and this event probably happened between 5 and 10,000 years ago. That's about as narrowed down as we can get it. It is essentially a gas ring, about 35 light years in diameter, and it is visible through a telescope. And that is the constellations for December. Join me again next month for another constellation. I'm Kirk Rosberg. Thank you for joining me.